In particular, we are looking to provide or obtain a service provider to manage our Portage Park Senior Satellite Center. So let's just move forward. So we will just kind of go through the review of the RFP and then entertain questions after we've gone through the slides. Next. So first, a little background about the Department of Family and Support Services. We are the major provider of social services for the city of Chicago, and our department is comprised of 7 divisions, ranging from children's services through seniors, as illustrated through the slide. The mission of the Department of Family and Support Services is to work with community partners so that we can connect Chicago residents and families to resources that build stability, support their well-being, and empower them to thrive. Related to that are our 4 basic priorities for the department, and that is to deliver and support high-quality, innovative, and comprehensive services that, again, empower clients to thrive, to collaborate with community partners, sister agencies, public officials, on policies and programs that improve Chicagoans' lives and advance systemic change, to inform the public of resources available to them, and then, of course, to be effective stewards of resources. Next slide. So, as it relates to the Senior Services Division, we are the designated area agency for the city of Chicago. There are 13 area agencies throughout the state of Illinois, and we serve specifically the geographic boundaries of the city of Chicago. In the role as the local area agency on aging, our primary goals are to advocate, plan, and coordinate and fund services for older adults, and then to reach those in targeted populations, including those who have the greatest social and economic need, live along, and those who are the old, and those being 85 years of age and older. Through our network of services, we provide a wide range of activities and programs on behalf of older adults. And that includes our senior centers, our congregate dining program, home delivered meals, our health promotion services, senior employment and volunteer initiatives, our caregiver and in-home services, our ombudsman program, or nursing home residents' rights advocacy, and then information and assistance for older adults and their caregivers. So when we start talking about a senior satellite center or senior centers in general, in terms of like the program offerings available through the Older American Act, a multi-purpose senior center probably is one of the most used services through the Aging Network, and there are approximately 10,000 or more senior centers that serve over 1 million older adults every day in the United States. So in terms of what we are trying to accomplish with our Senior Satellite Initiative and what we're trying to, in general, do through our centers, and that is to provide access to a wide range of activities and services really meant to address the well-being and support older adults who live in the community. Research has shown that senior centers participants can really learn to manage or delay the onset of chronic disease. We have a very strong, vibrant health promotion program, and then really to have programming and activities that will address the physical, social, spiritual, emotional, and economic well-being of older adults. To that end, we are looking at, in terms of performance, or to see that we are accomplishing what we're set out to do. There are a few things that we're going to look at to see if we're successful. One, of course, is we want people participating, so we're looking at client satisfaction regarding their experience as participating in our centers, the number of new people that we're actually bringing into our service system. So the work is never really done, as we know that we are in the midst of a growing senior demographic, and we want to be sure that we can get people as they age in to the senior population, because again, we believe that this will put them on a positive trajectory in terms of positive aging. And for those people who are coming in, we really want them to be repeat participators. So we want to assure that once a person is introduced to us, that they will return for a second visit. Next slide. So the overall goal, as we stated for our Senior Satellite Center, is to serve as a gateway to aging network programs and services, to adopt innovative strategies to address social isolation. There has been a lot of recent talk in the aging network about the issues of addressing social isolation, and it is the statewide initiative that the Illinois Department on Aging is looking to address. And recent studies have shown that isolation can be as dangerous for a person as actually smoking like a pack of cigarettes a day. And so this is something both nationally and actually globally we need to really think about, like how we are addressing for older adults. We want to really look at what our barriers for from getting seniors to participate in our services, and again, just trying to look at whatever positive aging strategies that we can put in place. Next slide. So what does it mean to be a community-based operator of a DFSS Senior Satellite Center? For someone who's interested in taking on the work, these are the major responsibilities that we are looking for you to do. And the first of which is to manage the day-to-day operations of the Satellite Center. That means, making sure that the doors are open, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. It means, we don't necessarily have set up staff or whatever else. So it is like moving, assuring like the programs and services that are happening within the doors happen each day. That is reporting back like any kind of incidents or anything that occurs, but really being that point of contact there at that center every day. The other thing is we're looking for the agency to hire and retain personnel and provide volunteer opportunities to support the center. A key component of most senior centers is the mobilization of volunteers. And so we need someone to be that champion, to, again, look at the assets of older adults and see how we can kind of put that in place to support the operation. Again, we have a growing senior population, and so we need someone who's going to help us really address the needs and interests of the diverse older adults of the city of Chicago who are living longer and have what we see as increasingly complex social and physical needs. We are committed to serving all who comes through our doors, and so a lot of times that will also deal with people who have limited speaking proficiency issues, and we just need to make sure that we are able to talk to them and we're really addressing, their cultural needs. In addition, we have an initiative very near and dear to our executive director's heart, and that is our Village initiative. And so for the city of Chicago, we've adopted what looks like the government response to kind of, if you will, villages that are private villages that are occurring across the United States. And so what we can leverage as our service center system is a facility space and or other governmental services that we can engage people in to really also build this safety net around like the greater community that the senior center is located in. So we really know that there's some people who will come through our doors, but then there are others who will not. And so it is our attempt at getting services out to those who won't come in a more traditional manner to our service system. And then the next thing is to really look at like the community assets and strengths that, partners will have, and really look at how we can look at other services and how we leverage them, as well as other funding streams to support the work of the satellite center. Next slide. In terms of who we are targeting in terms of attendees for our satellite centers, it really is older adults 55 years of age or older, those with greatest economic or social needs, and then those who are low-income minority persons, older adult with limited English proficiency, And again, this notion of positive aging and really trying to reach older persons as they age into the senior population to be early adopters of our program services. In terms of the core programming and the consistency that we are looking for across our service center experience, we have our fitness programming. This is led by a delegate agency on a schedule who will have fitness personnel who will come into your center to lead classes and do, if you will, one-on-one training with older adults and infuse evidence-based training curriculums on behalf of older adults. Our Golden Diners or our Congregate Dining program, which shows itself in most instances as a senior lunch program. Our health promotion program, which is very interesting here in the city of Chicago because it involves both health professionals as well as presentations and one-on-one consults, in addition to the various evidence-based programs that we have in place. Again, this is provided through other delegate agency agreements, and really it is the site manager's job just to make sure that all those programs and services are coordinated and appearing on our monthly calendar. It is the notion of linkage to community resources so that there is no wrong door, and as people are coming and having their presenting needs, that we can link them to appropriate programs and services. Our recreation program is what we call our life enrichment program, but that is the available registry of instructors that we have that will be used to put together the programming calendar, and that can offer a wide range of classes such as, I don't know, karaoke, Tai Chi, yoga, etc., but really is meant to address the needs of the seniors in that particular center and or geographic area. Each center has public computing and Wi-Fi availability, and we're looking for your cooperation in forwarding our village initiative. Next slide. So again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but we feel like that the following things will kind of help us know that we are on track in terms of where we want to go. And that is this notion of getting a client satisfaction rating of 85% or higher for satellite participants on their experience at the senior center, bringing in 15% of new program participants each year, and then assuring that 75% of those new participants who join us over the course of the year return for a second visit. In terms of, if you will, just the numeric type output kind of things we'll be looking at, and that is the total unduplicated number of participants who come into your center. So we can just really see in terms of density who it is that we are serving and how deep into the senior population we're going. We're looking at the total number of visits to the senior center, and again, the number of new people we're bringing in. So when we start talking about, if we will, the evaluation of your proposal, we're going to start talking about what are the things that we will more specifically look at to make that analysis of it. And the first part of this is the strength of your proposed program, and that is how clearly your proposal demonstrates that you understand the needs of the target population and their challenges as it relates to the local community area, how clearly you can articulate and you start talking about how you will achieve the desired outcomes for the target population. What is your strategy for really addressing the limited English speakers that will be frequenting the senior centers? Where you are in aligning your proposal to evidence around best practices in the field, and do you really have strong, innovative, creative, detailed plans on what you're going to do to retain participation of participants who come into the senior centers? Next slide. In terms of program performance, outcome, and quality, we're really going to be looking at past performance And if you're not a current provider, what information that you can provide to us that will demonstrate, if you will, that you can take on this work, and then you have a strong rationale on that helps us feel with confidence that we're going to be able to execute this program with fidelity. We're going to really be looking at your systems, staff, and processes to collect participant information and performance data to evaluate and then manage performance, and then how well or what experience you have in using data to inform or improve your services and or practices. In terms of organizational capacity, we really want to take a look at your organizational structure, the qualification of the staff that's being presented, who will be taking on this day-to-day management at the site and providing program oversight, just the fiscal oversight and fundraising and the strength of the organization, your ability to report and then monitor so that we will see that the program or the financials will have like strong internal controls and the ability to execute. We're looking at your history in serving the target population or the strength of the plan that you want to put in place to try to address the targeted populations as previously discussed. And we're really interested in diversity. And so we really want to understand what you're doing to make sure that you're inclusive in your work, both with the partners and the community. So the next area is reasonable cost budget justification and how you leverage funds. And so we want to make sure that there's a reasonable plan in place as it relates to the funding and or just the general strength of your budget proposal as it relates to the scope of work or your work plan. Again, that you have financial capacity or cash flow to be able to, pay for and then wait for reimbursement through the city of Chicago. And then we're going to look at just kind of the overall health financially of your organization through audited financial statements or the equivalent. And then we really want to look if you're able to leverage any of the non-city funds to support the program. So with all that said, the applications are due on September 13th at 12 noon. And here, there's just a big caveat that applications are due on September 13th, 2019. So we've had the most recent experience with the RFP for the other 14 satellite centers where people had done very extensive work, working on their proposals, but they were like trying to finalize it on the day that it was due and maybe ran into technical difficulties. We can't stress enough to you that this is a hard deadline in an electronic system, and so you should look at making sure that you've completed your application, I would say a day or so before, just to make sure that the deadline does not stop as you're trying to put information into the system. Yeah. And so I'm going to let Julia, who is the technical guru of RFPs, kind of take over from here.
So, hello, good morning. So, as Yolanda stressed, this is the eProcurement system is a citywide system. We all have to use it and learn to love it. It takes no prisoners. When it's a hard deadline, we cannot accept late applications. The system has not. I've put out probably 30 RFPs through this system, and it does not fail. Not once has there been a technical glitch, or it went down, or it was overwhelmed. That's not to say that people don't experience problems, but it is to say that most of the problems that you might experience with the eProcurement system have to do with your computer or your network interfacing with the eProcurement network. So to that degree, we have a lot of technical assistance things, ways that you can get yourself ready for this task of submitting on time. And I'm here to give you a little bit of instruction, some tips, but then also point you towards other post-webinar supports that you might use. I think I can see from all the people who are listening actively, I think you all have iSupplier accounts already. If you don't have an iSupplier account, you'll need to register for one, and that takes 3 to 5 days. And that would be when you would be looking at that eProcurement support at cityofchicago.org. As you may know, you only really should have one iSupplier account for your organization total. So it's not, if you have an iSupplier account or you're not sure, call me, but you don't need to have another iSupplier account to start this application. In fact, we really discourage having more than one iSupplier account. If you are running into problems with the eProcurement experience, you can call myself, and my phone number is sort of all over this document, but then also the RFP and on the DFSS website. You can also call the eProcurement hotline at 312-744-0358. Or if you're more of a video PowerPoint kind of a learner, you can go to this link for training materials under the delegate agency. There's a delegate agency box that has specific training materials for delegate agencies. I have a series of PowerPoints that I have posted on the DFSS website under the alerts. So whenever we release an RFP, I have them post a bunch of helpful technical assistance documents that you go into the alert, you sort of scroll down to the bottom and you'll see it. So I think we're ready to go to the next slide. So here's some application tips. As Yolanda said, start early. If you've never done business with the City of Chicago, you'll need to register into iSupplier. If you haven't, you won't need to do that. I also can only encourage you to read the RFP document. Our scope narratives and application questions closely align with the scope and the selection criteria. So if you have a question about, I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to say, or what do they really want, really look at that scope document in the RFP to find out what we want, or you can call Yolanda about a programmatic question. I would say very carefully review the selection criteria. The evaluation tools are drawn directly from that criteria, and they relate. And so if you want to know how to phrase a question or phrase an answer, or what we really are looking for, read the selection criteria, and it aligns with the scope, and really your answer should fall from that information. Just so that you know, if you've experienced glitches or problems with the eProcurement system, it really works best in the Internet Explorer browser. Internet Explorer is not necessarily my favorite browser of choice, but when I work in eProcurement, and this is like my plug, I do use Internet Explorer because that way it doesn't crash, it doesn't time out as much, my stuff is saved, so it really does make a difference. I think there's one other that it works okay in, but I think Firefox really doesn't get along with that well. And so if you're looking for sort of a glitch-free experience, or to minimize the potential for glitches, I really do recommend Internet Explorer. And I would also warn people not to use the back button on your browser when you are working in eProcurement. I have learned the hard way myself. If you use that back button, the eProcurement system will in fact back up, but it stops saving whatever you're doing. So when you go to save your work, it kicks you out, and then you go back in and nothing you've done has saved. So take it from my experiences with that. Try not to use that back button. And I know it's kind of tricky because it's eProcurement, it won't say like, I won't do this and I've stopped saving your work. It just quietly stops saving your work. So the next slide. So in terms of doing your application, there's a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces per narrative answer. So in the requirements section, which is what we call our application, our application questions, there's a box for each answer. That box is limited to 4,000 characters, not the whole, it's not the whole document. You get 4,000 characters per box, and 4,000 characters ends up being, I think, about maybe 2/3 of a page. You can submit your application. One nice feature of the eProcurement system is that you can submit your application early, and then if you say, oh, I want to change it, you can pull it back and resubmit it, amend it up until that 12 noon due date. I am with people, with Yolanda, and saying, please, please, please think about turning this in the day before, just so that you are not rushed. I like to say save off and submit early. But just understand that when you're working in eProcurement, that it's pressing submit is only the beginning of the submission process. You then sort of scroll through about 5 different screens, and you have to do some stuff, and that's without getting error messages because the system finds that you've left things blank, or it doesn't like the way you have answered a specific question. So you really should give yourself 15 or 30 minutes on the submission process. It's not just submitting, hitting submit and having this thing whisked away, and you don't have to think about it anymore. You hit submit and you have to review it, you have to acknowledge it, you have to check a box, you have to sign your name, you have to do all of these kinds of things. So it takes a little bit of time. Late applications, as we said, will not be accepted. The only way we can accept a late application is to reissue the RFP, and since this is already sort of a reissue, we'd really like to not reissue it again. Make use of the eProcurement hotline or my number, you can call me as well, but just note that the hotline operates during business hours only, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and that's the same with me. So if I'm at work earlier or later, I will certainly answer the phone or answer your email. I sometimes check stuff on the weekends if I know it's getting up to a due date, but for the most part, it's 9 to 5 on Monday through Friday. I make a note of trying to return all phone calls within 24 hours. OBM has a slightly, they have to do the whole city for this, so they usually will return a phone call between an hour, between a day or two if you don't get them immediately. It sort of depends on their workload. One thing I would say is leave a message. I speak with the hotline people fairly frequently. They speak with me. We know when it's often like I'm on the phone with somebody else and somebody calls, and then I can see them. I can see people just bouncing around. So just leave a message. We'll call you back or email us, and we will really, we'll try to get a response back to you as quickly as possible. I know sometimes it's hard to be patient, but I'm the only person doing these kinds of things in our office, and OBM has about 2.5 people doing the whole city, and so sometimes there is a little bit of a line. So in terms of doing the application, this is about multiple applications. You actually don't need to pay attention to this because there's no reason to do multiple applications. I think that we're just talking, this is sort of more reiterative to what we discussed in the previous slide, so I should have really taken it out, and we can move on to the next one. So here are some hands-on instructions on how to accept an amendment or addendum and how to submit your application. So this should go pretty quickly. Generally speaking, we do an amendment or an addendum if we have substantive clarifications that we need to do off of the webinar. On occasion, we have found errors in our RFP, but I don't think that's going to be happening for this one, and we'll do an amendment. If you have not started an application and you need or if you have already started an application, or you're actually starting an application, you'll need to accept the amendment in order to proceed and submit. If you've started an application already, accepting the amendment pulls your work that you have started from the original RFP to the amended RFP so that you don't lose any work. So for this, we're going to just do a quick walkthrough. Here's some screenshots. These slides are already posted on the DFSS website under the alert section under how to accept an amendment. This webinar and the slides will be posted on the DFSS website as well. And I think, Yolanda, you send them out to people as well. As well as this entire webinar is posted on YouTube, and the link is posted on the DFSS website. So if you are going to accept an amendment, you've already logged in, you've come to where the application is. and you're going to start the acceptance process by viewing the amendment history. And if you have not selected your RFP, you're going to do the create quote and hit go, and that's where you're going to get started. Thank you. So this is where you pulled up your RFP. To the number 1 button allows you, if you click on, in the eProcurement environment, usually blue things may take you to other things. So you're going to click on the amended changes. You click on the document number. If you just want to review the changes, you click on the little eyeglass icon or the infinity icon that's circled under 2. Thank you, Tom. And then after you figured out what the amendment's about, although there's a little description, and seen the changes, really gotten familiar with everything you need to know, you can hit that 3 button, Acknowledge Amendments. And that will take you to the next slide. Okay, so you're going to get to this screen where you're going to accept the terms and conditions of the RFP and acknowledge that you are aware of what the changes made to the amendment document are. So you check the box, and then you hit the Acknowledge button on the right-hand side, and that will take you to the next screen. Thank you, where you indicate that you have confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment, because we want to make sure that you absolutely 100% know in what way this document has been amended. And so that is the way that eProcurement does that, is to repeatedly ask you to confirm that you have actually read this. And that, I think, I do not disagree with that. So when you get to this screen, you are going to confirm, and you're going to hit yes to confirm. I honestly don't know what would happen if you hit no. I think it would just throw you back into the review process. And this will get you to the acceptance, where you click on the checkbox saying that you have read and accepted the terms of conditions, and then you click accept, and that is the final step. And I think that you are now married to the amended RFP. So this is how you submit an application. I said that this process takes a couple of minutes. It's not just submit and zoop, it's gone. No, much like the amendment process, you have to walk through a couple of screens just to make sure that you really, really, really are sure and you know. So when you are ready to submit, you start by saving your draft one last time. So you hit the Save Draft button, which is on the upper right-hand side or the lower right-hand side of your screen, and then you hit Continue. Now, many people, when they hit Continue, will get an error, a number of different error messages. So here I've given you an example error message. And so this is where, if you're in a hurry and you're me, you would start flipping out because you don't actually see the error message until like 5 minutes into the panic attack. So you're going to see the error. And the error message will always tell you what you have done, but it is sort of written in eProcurement language, which is not always the easiest to comprehend. So in this one, this is a very common one. You must quote on at least one line in the RFQ. That would mean that you need to go to the Lines tab, which is right below where I've circled, and you click on that, and you fill out one in each of the empty boxes, and then you save, and then you hit Continue again. So let's go to the next screen. So here we go. Here we just talked about what you would have to do. So this is, sometimes you get a message that says in the requirements, it will tell, when it says the requirements, what it means is the application questions. It will tell you the application questions that you have inadvertently left blank, and that has happened, that often happens to us. There's sometimes the question. So here is another one. Yes, it says the quote value is required for the requirement first name. That is a sentence that makes so not very much sense to me. I can't imagine how, okay. So what it means, let's parse it out. You can see here the quote value is where you write in your information, your answer. That's the thing that's limited to 4,000 characters, including punctuation and spaces. The requirement section is where is eProcurement speak for the application. And then first name is actually the name of, is the question. So if it was a narrative question that you had somehow not filled out, it would say the quote value is required for the requirement and then the entire question. So this is where you would go and you fill it out, and then again, you hit save and hit continue. And so once your application is free from errors, you're ready to proceed and submit. And so at this point, clicking continue should put your application into the review and submit phase, which you will see because it says on the top. And then it will allow you to review all of your data just to make sure that you like how everything looks, that everything is, you put in all of the right first names and everything that you want to do. And then you're going to scroll down to the bottom of the screen where you see all your responses. And at the bottom of the screen, you will ask to provide electronic signature. I have, when I was testing the system, I, of course, for somebody who spends all of their time writing instructions, I am terrible at following them. What I would say is make sure that you have to put in the signature before you check the box. If you check the box and then put in the signature, it doesn't like that. So fill out your name and your title and then check the box. And then you are able to go forward. You hit the submit button and you will submit. So the eProcurement system does not send out an email. This very understated screen is all you're going to get from the system is that in terms of confirming that you have submitted. And so this is, you need to see this. If you are worried, you can always call me and I will check to make sure that your application has been received, but don't expect the system to send you an email because it will not. So I think that's going forward. That concludes what I have to say about accepting an amendment and submitting a document, I hope, or an application rather. I hope that's helpful. If you have further questions, you can always call me or call the eProcurement hotline. If you have questions about the program, you can call Yolanda. And here are our phone numbers, and I cannot thank you enough for considering making an application, and we look forward to reading what you submit on time.
Thank you.